You guys, imagine standing in a crowd so massive that you can barely hear your own thoughts. Purple banners are waving in the California breeze. Phones are raised high. Hands are trembling. Some fans are already crying. And then, all at once, thousands of voices begin chanting one name. Jimin. 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 The sound grows louder. And louder. And louder. Until it feels less like a crowd and more like a living heartbeat. That was the scene when Park Jimin arrived in Stanford with the members of BTS for the next stop of the Arirang World Tour. And honestly, it was one of those moments that reminds you just how powerful Jimin's presence truly is. Because this wasn't just a welcome. It was an eruption. A tidal wave of love. A sea of ARMY so emotional, so loud, so completely overwhelmed that Stanford itself seemed to transform into one giant purple ocean. And right at the center of that ocean was Jimin. Soft. Graceful. Radiant. Looking both stunned and deeply touched by what he was witnessing. The incredible thing is that this happened before he even stepped on stage. No music. No choreography. No performance. Just Jimin arriving. And somehow, that alone was enough to create one of the most unforgettable moments of the entire tour. The energy had been building for hours. Fans started gathering long before he arrived. Some had traveled across the state. Some came from different countries. Others had barely slept, too excited to rest. They held handmade signs. Wore purple outfits. Clutched ARMY bombs and posters to their chests. And as the hours passed, anticipation grew almost unbearable. Every time a vehicle approached, the crowd surged with excitement. Every movement from security sparked whispers. Is it him? Did you see that? Could Jimin be here? You guys, can you imagine that feeling? Your heart pounding so hard you can hear it. Your hands shaking. Your eyes fixed on one spot, waiting for the moment you've dreamed about for years. And then it happened. A convoy pulled in. Security moved into position. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. The noise level exploded. And then, through the commotion, Jimin appeared. The scream that followed was deafening. It wasn't just loud. It was emotional. The kind of sound that comes from pure joy. From disbelief. From finally seeing someone who has meant so much to you for so long. Fans cried openly. Some covered their mouths. Others hugged complete strangers. Many couldn't hold their phones steady. Because no matter how many videos you've watched, nothing prepares you for the real thing. And Jimin looked breathtaking. His shorter blonde hair shimmered under the sunlight. His skin glowed. His eyes were bright and warm. And he wore that unmistakable expression of gentle surprise. That soft, shy smile that somehow makes millions of people feel seen. How does he even do that? How can one smile feel so comforting? So intimate? So unforgettable? As the crowd continued chanting his name, Jimin paused. He looked out at the sea of fans. At the signs. At the tears. At the countless faces calling out to him with so much love. And for a moment, he seemed genuinely overwhelmed. Not in a dramatic way. In a deeply human way. As if he was trying to process the magnitude of what he was seeing. Thousands of people. Thousands of voices. Thousands of hearts beating for him. And then he smiled. That smile. Soft. Tender. Almost disbelieving. And the crowd erupted even louder. Because in that one expression, fans could see exactly what Jimin was feeling. Gratitude. Affection. Amazement. Love. Then he raised his hand and waved. A simple gesture. But the effect was instant chaos. Fans screamed. Some broke down into tears. Others clutched their hearts. And just when you thought the moment couldn't become more emotional, Jimin placed his hand over his heart. Honestly, can we talk about that? Because if you're ARMY, you know exactly what that means. Thank you. I see you. I feel your love. I love you too. No words. No microphone. Just one hand over his heart. And somehow, it said everything. The sound that followed was overwhelming. Thousands of voices shouting his name with even greater intensity. Jimin. 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 Stanford wasn't just cheering. Stanford was pouring out its heart. And Jimin, as always, was receiving that love with incredible humility. He gave a small bow. Turned to wave to another section. Made eye contact with fans on both sides. Even in a crowd this large, he somehow made the moment feel personal. That's Jimin's magic. He has this extraordinary ability to make every fan feel acknowledged. Like for one fleeting second, the entire world narrows down to a single glance. A single smile. A single gesture. And that moment becomes a memory you carry forever. What made this even more emotional was the timing. BTS had just completed 3 unforgettable concerts in Mexico. Shows filled with tears, heartfelt speeches, and moments that left fans emotionally wrecked. Jimin himself had cried during the final night. You could still see the emotion lingering in his eyes. And now, arriving in Stanford, he was being welcomed with the same overwhelming love. It was as if ARMY wanted to tell him something. The love doesn't stop. It follows you everywhere. From Mexico. To California. To every corner of the world. And Jimin seemed to understand that. You could see it in the way he lingered. In the way he looked back. In the way he kept smiling, even as he was guided forward. At one point, he laughed softly at something shouted from the crowd. That tiny laugh. That brief flash of joy. And suddenly, the moment felt even more intimate. Because beyond the global fame, beyond the superstar image, Jimin still feels incredibly genuine. He reacts. He listens. He appreciates. He never seems disconnected from the people who love him. And that authenticity is what makes moments like this so moving. As he continued walking, the chants never stopped. Jimin. 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 The sound echoed through Stanford like a declaration of devotion. And honestly, if you were there, you probably felt like time stopped. Everything else faded away. The noise. The crowd. The outside world. All that remained was Jimin. His smile. His wave. His hand over his heart. And the feeling that you were witnessing something truly special. Then came one of the most emotional moments of all. Jimin turned back one last time. He paused. Looked at the crowd. And gave another wave. A final acknowledgement. A final thank you. And the reaction was immediate. Fresh tears. Renewed screams. An explosion of emotion from fans who didn't want the moment to end. Because that's the hardest part, isn't it? These moments are so brief. A few seconds. A few gestures. And then they're over. But the impact lasts forever. Slowly, Jimin disappeared from view. But the energy remained. Fans stood in place, crying and smiling. Hugging each other. Replaying videos. Trying to process what they had just experienced. Because they hadn't simply seen Jimin. They had felt his warmth. His gratitude. His quiet sincerity. And once again, he had reminded everyone why he is so deeply loved. Not just because he is beautiful. Not just because he is talented. But because he makes people feel something real. Something profound. Something unforgettable. Stanford became a sea of ARMY. Thousands of fans chanting his name without stopping. And in the middle of all that love stood Jimin. Gentle. Radiant. Emotionally present. Receiving every cheer as if it mattered. Because to him, it does. And as the sound of his name continued echoing through the air, as tears shimmered in the eyes of fans, as the memory settled into thousands of hearts, one truth became impossible to deny. Sometimes Jimin doesn't need a stage to create magic. He only needs to arrive, smile, and look at ARMY the way he always does, with a heart full of gratitude.